All right, so we're going to move on to the first of the audience request weapons for tonight, which is the boarding axe. And this is not necessarily a boarding axe, because a lot of boarding axes had back spikes. This is just an axe that I use for Viking reenactment. But, you know, it's an acceptable substitute, I guess. Oh, come on, that pun was excellent. So something that will hopefully on the list of weapons I've promised to look at will be boarding axe based on like other 19th century sword fighting systems. So in terms of, you know, weapon properties, the axe is short, so probably actually not that much different to a cutlass. If we just grab a buffer cutlass, if we can get a comparison of length, the axe is, in terms of length, is not that much shorter than a cutlass, which is excellent because it, the first time I tried doing axe against sword, I did axe and knife against a friend of mine who had a nice big long Elizabethan broadsword. So we're talking a sword with like a 36-inch blade, I believe. And I just could not touch him because it meant, you know, to actually reach him, I'd have to take a full pass forward and then be attacking on a lunge. And he just chopped me to ribbons because I also didn't have much capacity to parry. In terms of the axe, you do have to be much more cautious than with the knife, even though the tactics I would use would be similar. You know, mainly making direct attacks to the hand because the hand is unprotected. You do have the advantage against the axe, or the advantage against the axe where, you know, if you launch an attack, parrying is going to be more difficult because they don't have a shell guard. And to defend that, they're either going to have to retract on the parry, or even slip and punch as you do in various forms of Lacan. So, you know, parry like that. So you've got a bit of an advantage in terms of if you're facing an axe, someone with a boarding axe, and you've got a cutlass, seizing the offensive gives you a disproportionate advantage than it would against other weapons. You've also can basically hammer their hand, particularly if they're trying to adapt to 19th century guard, they're going to do a single stick or whatever, and they're doing, you know, this sort of thing, like cudgel play, this kind of thing. This is an actual thing with cudgel play, and certainly because to stop people from grappling, or at least according to Hutton, to stop people from turning a stick fight into a wrestling match, what they'd make them do is hold a legs, so they have to hold on. And so what they do is they bring their hand up like this, so that they could use their off arm as basically as a shield for one side of their face. But yeah, so you do see stuff like this. This is also where Pringle Green gets his ideas properly. So they might, you know, if they're throwing like that, you've got an advantage in that you can press the attack. You've got the opportunity to attack the hand. So if they're up here, you just directly straight in like that. They're down here, come down on top. Where the point where the hand might not be an option is if they do things like the Guard of the Determined from Verville, where, you know, the hand is withdrawn. In which case, what you do is you attack where the hand is going to be. So if I'm like this, you know, my Guard of the Determined from Verville, and you know, I'm getting attacked by someone who's got a cutlass, and they're going to win because I really didn't think the scenario through when I grabbed the axe. I don't know. What you do is you attack where the axe is going to be. So someone will want to come in basically at this angle, so that if I throw, they're going to cut my arm, or alternatively clash. So we'll come down, and at the very least, I'll have to slip and try and bat their sword out of the way, which means that, you know, I have to react to what they're doing, which means they can set the tone of the fight. And because I can't parry, unlike a sword where I could parry and return very easily, I don't actually get the advantage of acting second the way I would in a sword fight. I basically have to actively do something to recover and come back at them. So yeah, if someone's got a body axe, attack the hand. If the hand is at all extended, if the hand is withdrawn enough that it's not the closest target, attack where the hand is going to have to go to attack you, so you can attack with impunity. I guess, and the main, there are things to be wary of with the axe as well, particularly the impetus of the axe. So I'd be quite cautious about reacting to the axe or just waiting for the axe person to move, because if someone has an axe, the thing, they can hook with it, they can come in, they can hook a weapon, so they might quickly hook my weapon to then come in aggressively, or they might even just use the fact that most of the axe's weight is up here to beat my weapon aside and come in which case, you've got similar sorts of, depending on your guard, you can have similar sorts of counters to the bayonet beat. So if my sword gets beaten down, I just make sure my hand stays on line and I punch it back to the center whilst moving away from the where the weapon is. The problem with that is the axe being quicker, or the axe being more so shorter actually, and less likely to get tangled. That's not as safe an option as it is against the bayonet. If I'm like this, same deal as with the bayonet, same movement, but less reliable. I guess here if I get struck this way, I'll move to high octave and immediately come back. But again, my opponent has more options. So yeah, you don't necessarily want to be acting second against the axe, because the axe, if the person with the axe decides to attack your weapon rather than you, you're needing to recover and you're giving them the advantage. Whereas if you attack the person with the axe, you've got the advantage because they don't have the same defensive capability as you, which means they either have to make a more committed defense in terms of extending more or striking out of the way, or even retreating, which, given that even a cutlass has a bit of a reach advantage on an axe, gives the cutlass the advantage. If the person with the axe attacks you, you've basically got most of the same parrying options. I mean, it's going to be more of a test of your structure to make sure that the axe doesn't blast through, but as long as you've got good structure, as long as you don't let your elbow collapse particularly, keep your shoulders nice and straight, nice and strong. Like I've fought against people with 1,200 gram broadswords, so swords twice the weight of this thing with this sword, and big people who make big heavy strokes trying to blast through parries. And I mean, it's a wonderful way to get good at parrying, is to have someone try and smash through your parry with a weapon twice the weight of yours, but because you learn very, very quickly to build structure in your parries. So you want to be solid in your parry and then come back as quick as you can. Like, just come back with ripostes. Playing parry riposte against someone with an axe, you'll have the advantage with the cutlass because you're better at parrying. You've got a shell guard. You've also got a better balance for parrying. Like even using a medieval sword, get my medievally sword out. This doesn't have near as much hand protection. Like it's just got a little cross, but I still am more able to parry because the balance is quite low and I can make quick movements very easily. And when I live the dream and finally get a nice Viking sword, which has even less hand protection again, I will still have an advantage parrying with the Viking sword because of how low the balance is. So yeah, in conclusion, I guess, against the boarding axe, if you have the cutlass, you want to act first. You don't want to hang around giving the opportunity to beat your weapon aside. If they do attack you, you want to parry and riposte because you have an advantage there. But yeah, just attack their weapon hand if it's at all extended, and if it's not, attack where it will be. So yeah, that's my rough, that's kind of my rough advice on dealing with the axe. So are there any questions? Actually, I suspect that advice would probably apply as well to things like entrenching tools, particularly like, you know, if you're dealing with siege works, you know, there's a lot of engineers, frontiersmen, like specialist units like that, in addition to being issued with hangers, basically Cutlass. They were also, like, they also had, you know, axes and shovels and things like that. If you've ever played Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars, there's always someone who plays an engineer who's running around with the big wood chopping axe and somehow getting kills with the thing, because people like to do that. I don't know, I guess they do it because it's very difficult to do. But yeah, probably similar sort of advice, although if it's a big, like, two-handed sort of felling axe, you probably have slightly different advice again, or probably have slightly different advice, but more similar to what I advise against quarterstaff. Yep. Oh. And Jacob says, oh, the lost art of counter-strike knifing. Yes, I remember counter-strike, and just, because everyone would be fast with the knife, so you just run in and knife someone to prove that you could. All right, well, it looks like there's no other questions or comments. I'm just going to pause recording.